What are the pests? What are all the things that you need to know about artichoke? This video is going to answer that and more. I'm going to show you how to plant it, grow it, harvest it, and cook with it. So stick around and you're going to see everything there is to know about artichokes. I also have a blog that's a companion to this video, so make sure to check that out as well. And let's go. Before we get into it, let me introduce myself. Welcome to the Curious Nook. My name is Ali, and this is just a small part of our food forest that we have here. We are a tiny but mighty urban permaculture homestead, and just this space is 800 square feet, and we have 10 fruit trees in here, countless shrubs and flowers and herbs and everything, and we plant a wide variety of things in our garden. In this channel, you're going to see a whole lot of gardening, some DIY, and just how we are able to manage all of this in a tiny space. But now, back to the artichokes. It seems like a vegetable that would be full of fuss and mystery, but it's actually really simple to grow artichokes. Here I actually have two varieties that date back to the 1400s. And this is my son's little dinosaur garden that we built for him. And I'm actually using the artichokes as landscaping plants, which is a fabulous thing that you can do with them because they have these big ferny leaves and they actually add a lot of interest to your garden. Artichokes can be grown from seed or starts. If you're growing them from seed, I highly recommend starting them as early as possible, because you'd want to have the plant go into the soil as soon as you can plant in the springtime. So if you're in an area where it's very cold, say your zones 5 and under, artichoke is going to be an annual vegetable for you. Zones 5 and up, it's going to be a perennial vegetable. So you can actually leave them in the ground, and your way to perennialize artichoke is to let them flower. So once it flowers, it's going to be able to get a lot of the energy down into the plant. In the following year, it's actually going to generate pups. So similar to how you can get for succulents and other plants like that, you will have little plants at the base of the artichoke that you can then remove and transplant to other areas of your garden. Or you can also just let it stay there, and then you would have multiple plants in it together. You just have to make sure that you have enough room for the artichokes to grow and expand, because they are large plants. Artichokes are between 3 and 5 feet in diameter and tall. So you need to be able to make sure that they have enough room to grow and expand and give you all of those beautiful vegetables that artichokes are known for. Artichokes are also incredibly heavy feeders. So when you plant them in the ground, once you have your little start from a nursery or one that you've babied from seed, you're going to want to plant it in a lot of compost with a lot of aged manure and some good amounts of like fertilizer. I love using fishbone meal and kelp to really help with the soil, and also a lot of worm castings. That's what I use for pretty much any time that I plant. A lot of worm castings, a lot of fishbone meal, and kelp are my go-tos. My soil already has a lot of compost base that I add to it every year, along with cover crops. When you're planting your artichoke, you're going to want to make sure that you're putting in a lot of compost down so the plant can thrive and not be depleted of nutrients. You want to be able to have the artichoke grow as big as it can and produce as much as it can, especially if you're in a cold zone and you have a short growing season. You want to be able to get those fruits. Artichokes are also plants that can have a lot of pest issues, especially with ants farming aphids on them. So you want to keep a lookout for that. And my biggest piece of advice for that is making sure that you have a thriving ecosystem in your garden so that ladybugs can come in and get rid of all of those aphids. Also are prone to spider mites and powdery mildew and a few other things. Gophers. are actually one of my biggest issues with artichokes. I kid you not, I lost an apple tree because I planted the artichokes near the apple tree, and I had a big old gopher around my garden at the time. Took out the apple tree to get to the artichoke. So if you have gopher issues or any issues with your underground dwelling rodents, make sure to plant the artichokes in a cage. That's really going to save your plants in the long run. Especially don't want to lose any trees that you have around. Like here, this is a cherry tree, I have a plum right there. You don't want to lose any of your trees, so these are in cages, and I have the cage elevated off of the ground. Not sure if you can see it in the video, but I have the cage elevated off the ground so it covers the base of the plant. This is an artichoke that you don't want to pick. You see how these tough outer layers are opening up? That means that this artichoke is getting ready to flower. So this is actually great to have in your garden because it's going to attract a lot of pollinators. Artichokes are wonderful for that, but you want to pick the ones that are more closed, like these side shoots, and not something like this. You want to let this flower so the plant can be able to get the energy back and be like, hey, I need to produce seed, I need to produce pups for next year. And this is how you're able to have artichoke perennialize. This plant is actually multiple plants. You can see there 1, 2, and 3, and it came off of one, which was here, and that's where the artichoke had flowered. So now you have all of these offshoots, and you can separate these, but we're going to be letting them flower, so next year we can take the pups and move it to different parts of the garden. And because I've always been a sucker for a good science experiment, I'm going to show you what these will look like. The different ones. This is a more open artichoke blossom. This is a more closed one. It's a little too close to this tree, so we're going to cut these out. You see the bigger heads, and then for some other things there's little heads. It's because artichokes actually produce varying sizes of heads in the same plant. So the primary heads are going to be your really big artichokes. So a plant, depending on the variety of artichoke, they will produce about 5 to 7 big heads. So it can vary between your 3 inches to 5 inches depending on variety. Then comes the secondary heads. They're going to be smaller than the primary, and after that you get the tertiary heads. And those are usually the ones that goes into your artichoke preserves that you see, like your marinated artichokes, and those are generally the tertiary heads, because most people aren't going to go to a grocery store and buy a bunch of tiny artichokes, so they go into preserves. I hope that makes sense. This is what you need for preparing artichokes: a bowl of water, some lemon, a spoon, and a knife. That's it. It's really basic. Gonna start off with one of the younger ones so you can see the differences between the artichokes. So to start off, you're going to be wanting to peel off the outside tougher layers. Some varieties of artichokes will have spines at the very end of the petals. These are technically petals of an artichoke because an artichoke is a flower. So, being a flower of the thistle family, thistles tend to be very bristly. So the buds, which are what artichokes are basically immature flower buds. So you're going to want to remove all these tough exterior layers. And the method of preparation of an artichoke really depends on how you're planning on using them. My favorite ways to use artichokes are on pizzas and pastas. So I always make sure to have the artichoke heart. That's the best one. If you're planning on using artichoke with, say, sauce where you dip, like if you're doing like a hollandaise or something like that, you're going to want to save the head and you're going to cook it that way. So here you can see this is the cross section of an artichoke. This part right here, you can see it's hairy. That's the choke. That's the part that you want to remove. So this is where the seed of the artichoke forms. You have the heart here, the stem, the inner petals, and your tougher outer petals. Your outer petals, especially when it starts getting here, you can actually eat them. They tend to be very tender as they curve in towards the artichoke heart, and that's usually what you eat with a dip. So to clean out an artichoke, you're going to take a spoon and you're going to scoop out the choke. This hairy bit will tend to irritate your throat like no other, so you want to be able to get all of that out. There's usually these tougher inner petals that aren't very great to eat either. So you want to take that out. If you're just trying to eat the artichoke for the exterior petals where you're having it with a dip, with like you're dipping the outer petals in a hollandaise or something like that, you don't really have to go through this process until you want to get to the heart and eat it. So that's that. You can see it's starting to brown up in there, and that's because artichoke oxidizes insanely fast. So what you're going to do with this is you can either take some lemon and get the lemon in there, or to also really clean off any of the choke bits, I like to put it in with water and the lemon in the water. This also washes out any of the excess choke, and you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, and this here you can see just how close it was to flowering. So all of these layers are incredibly tough, really hard, brittle. And look at how big the choke is in this one compared to the other one. So you could still eat the heart, but it starts at this point. It starts getting really tough, would be really chewy for you to go into. So you can see that the older ones are just not really worth the effort. You want to put in more when they're closed and tighter. At this point, you just want to let it flower. Enjoy the beautiful flower that it brings to your garden, and eat the smaller heads because it's going to be a lot more worth it. So to cook the artichokes, we're actually going to be roasting them with some garlic scapes and some lemon juice, and we're going to roast it at 350 for 30 minutes. And one of the big things for doing artichokes is you can make them every which way, but I actually like roasting them a lot. I think it brings out the flavor the most, and it's super easy. You pretty much just do what I'm doing here, and you can mix any kind of flavor that you like. I'm using the garlic scape because that's what we picked, and I had the leftover lemon there. but really any flavors there works. And then you can just cover them up with some foil and pop it in the oven, and they will roast beautifully until they're nice and soft, and that's what you're looking for. But I've honestly made them before with just a light roasting and then throw it in a stir fry or put some like chili oil on it, and it's fantastic. And it's so easy to make. So here they're nice and soft. I'm gonna cool them down, and then we're just going to be putting it over the pizza. I'm using a basil pesto that I had made and frozen, and it's just really easy to rethaw and put it on pizza crust that I had actually frozen as well. It's some of the little things that makes a meal like this, when you're super busy, come together faster. It's just having those things frozen. And then here I'm just putting together some mozzarella and then the artichokes, and this ended up being such a fantastic pizza. It just felt like spring, and it was perfect for a warm day, and it's just one of those things that was really fast and easy to make, but had so much flavor and such a great punch to it. And for this, because the dough is already ready, I pretty much just put it in the oven so it would melt the cheese really quick because everything else was ready, and then just topped it with some olive oil and served it with a salad, and it was really fantastic. I really hope that this video was helpful and you're able to gain some good insight into growing artichokes. If you want even more detail, I have a companion blog post with this video. It's in captions and you can check it out. There's tons of information on how to grow artichokes and everything that you could possibly want to know about them. If you want to see anything else, let me know in the comments, and I'm sure I'm probably growing it. Until then, plant what brings you joy. Bye.